If you're working for a nonprofit, there's a strong possibility that you are constantly feeling like you're under a lot of stress, trying to think of how to keep your board or your boss happy. Maybe you're continually being asked to do more with less resources and less talent. Well, you're not alone. Hey everybody, I'm Ian Campbell. I'm CEO of Mission Suite. Before we jump into today's video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you're notified every time that we post new videos. So we are in this post-COVID world, semi-post-COVID world at the very least, right? And every organization out there is facing challenges that they've never seen before. Businesses have seen tough times over the last 18 months, everything from supply chain issues to logistical issues to labor shortages and keeping everyone safe and keeping everyone healthy. And no other segment has felt this pinch more than the nonprofit organizations. Just think about that for a second. Imagine if your job were to raise money and ask for donations. Well, if you're here, it very well may be. And obviously that's not easy, right? But now imagine having to ask for donations at the height of COVID when so many people were worried about so many things. So in today's video, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the challenges that nonprofits face. And maybe we'll even talk a little bit about how to solve some of those challenges. Now, I have the utmost respect for nonprofit organizations. I love them. I've worked with them. I've served for them. I've worked on boards, and I love nonprofits. They dedicate so much of their time, so much of their focus to solving problems, fighting disease, lifting up our communities. So I'm really excited about today's video to dive into some of these challenges that nonprofits are going through, and for the rest of the month while we talk about some of the solutions that we can kind of bring to the table to address some of these challenges. So one thing that I've always respected about nonprofit organizations is that they all seem to have in common this ability to adapt to change. Now, I feel like this might come from the number of different ways that nonprofits just have to go out there and raise money, right? They are constantly shifting gears and they're constantly cultivating new donation sources, new funding sources. Now, even in ideal circumstances, most nonprofits are going to deploy several different revenue streams, right? They're going to have a number of different ways that they're bringing in money now. And think about where you're donating, right? Think about all the different ways that they're reaching out to you and asking for a donation, right? And you're just one person. On the whole, a typical 501c3 is probably going to use at least 5 different fundraising methodologies. It can include things like soliciting corporate donations and sponsors, government grants and sponsorships, private grant research, writing, charity events, both in-person, virtual, maybe silent auctions, live auctions, membership drives, and so much more. There's a lot there. And each of these funding sources carries with it its own list of tasks. For example, a silent auction needs a team of volunteers to create an outreach list. They need to call and visit local businesses and ask them to donate, collect items, keep track of bidding, collect money, and plenty more. And this is just one piece of the fundraising pie. Nonprofit leaders have to be agile and adapt to changing needs, but they always need to think about the next opportunity. Any nonprofit will tell you that you rarely get to pause your fundraising efforts. I've known plenty of executive directors, and they've all said this to me personally. And as the world and the economy changes, your cause has to adapt to the funding, to the way that the funding is flowing. Stopping a campaign is problematic for a lot of reasons, and you can lose a lot of donors. You can suffer from decreased engagement, which can also lead to some inertia for your cause. If you stop, you risk losing the momentum that you have and that you've built up over time. So nonprofits and their leaders have become experts in anticipating changing needs, redirecting, refocusing donors and volunteers, and seeking new ways to continue the fundraising efforts. All of this while actively working to keep members, donors, partners, volunteers, and sponsors engaged, right? And this brings us to our next nonprofit challenge, which is engagement. And this is another constant in the nonprofit world, is that as a nonprofit leader, you always have to keep learning how to keep your donors and your community engaged. Now, it's the primary goal of a nonprofit to keep the cause funded, of course, but you also need to think about how you can keep your donors giving and how you can keep them coming back, how you can reward them for their support. It's a tricky line to walk. Keeping your donors interested while still devoting as much of your funding as you can to your cause is a tough needle to thread. It's not easy. We've all heard the adage that it's more difficult to keep a customer than to have to go out and find a new one, and the same is true for donors. Once you have a donor who's committed to your cause, your time, and your money, those are best spent keeping that donor engaged. Many nonprofits measure the viability of the organization not just by dollars donated, but actually by donor engagement. Now, your CRM, something like, Mission Suite, for example, can measure the KPIs of engagement. So they can look at email open rates, they can look at click-through rates, social media interaction, different things like that. If it's something that you need help with, of course, you can reach out to us. Mission Suite is a great option for that, and we do that a lot, right? But there's a lot more that we can track as well. We can track everything around engagement. Some of it manual, some of it automatic, but there's a lot of different ways so you can actually see how engaged people are. There are limitless organizations where a person can donate, right? Or spend their time. And when you have a new donor, you should be using every tool in your toolbox to keep them engaged with that cause. Studies show that donors want to feel appreciated and recognized above anything else, right? This isn't a surprise to any of us. Anybody who has actually donated money knows that it feels good when people say thank you. Now, using a CRM can personalize messages, and it can be an ideal combination of automation and personalization to keep your community coming back for more. Now, let's talk about a little bit of homework. You and your nonprofit team should create a CRM journey for your donors to ensure that they're feeling personally recognized. Hold off on the ask a little bit, right? I mean, we're coming up on the holidays. It's a great time to actually focus on just saying thank you, right? So learn a little bit about the new donor, right? How did they get here? How are they related to your cause? How does it speak to them? Would they like to be more involved? Is there more that they would like to do? And what can you give to them to make them feel more engaged with your cause? These answers can help you get to know your donors, and in the end, it's really what you want. Building a relationship with your donors will pay off for you in the long run, and you'll have a more engaged community with a higher lifetime value of a donor who actually feels connected. Think about what the other steps that you might be able to take from a marketing perspective. Things that will make this donor a sustainable asset to your organization. Maybe your nonprofit would rather have a one-time donation, but realistically, you'd probably rather truly connect with a donor, right? Truly connect with somebody who volunteers, who educates people, who spreads the word about your cause. Obviously, engagement is key to securing that lifelong donor. One more note about engagement. There are many, many ways that you can track the engagement of your donors and sponsors. I mentioned this earlier. Anybody with a robust marketing plan or engagement plan should also be keeping an eye on the different metrics of the efforts that you're pursuing. Make sure that you're looking at attendance at events, volunteer rates, email open, social media engagement like we talked about before, and all these different things. When we talk about engagement, it's critical that you can see the entire picture and actually draw some conclusions about what's working and what's not. If you have any questions about engagement, again, we're here to help. So let us know what we can do for you. The next big challenge that we're facing, that are facing nonprofits, well, it's just about everybody's challenge at one point or another. It's technology. Now, nonprofits have never been early adopters. Mainly, I'm assuming, because they're putting time and effort into raising money for their cause and executing on the mission and not looking for new technology. Obviously, they need tech, but they also need to find solutions to their needs and challenges that can actually save them time, money, and effort. A functioning CRM, it can foster engagement, track leads. It's essential for making nonprofits work smarter and not harder. Nonprofits also had and possibly still have struggles with live and virtual events. In-person events, galas, fundraisers, they've long been a cornerstone of fundraising. We've all been to them. And they're a great way to get your donors in the same room and recognize and award top contributors. Essentially, live events have been so important, and so many nonprofits could never imagine having to cut that critical piece out of the regiment until it had to happen. COVID hit, and all of a sudden, no one was meeting in person anymore. Nonprofits, being the agile organizations that they are, had to quickly pivot to find an alternative way to fill these two essential functions. And while COVID didn't lead to the invention of online events, it certainly forced everyone to get a lot more comfortable staring at each other through a computer screen instead of over a plate of oftentimes rubber-feeling chicken. Nonprofits now, of course, they had to adapt to technology, right? They had to find some way to make the virtual experience as good or potentially better than the typical in-person environment. Many had to learn kind of on the fly, right? Or they had to risk losing the momentum that was so much built up in the past when so much was so uncertain. When I talk to nonprofits, technology, and specifically that related to events, remains one of the biggest hurdles to overcome. Since cutting those events out was not really an option, events teams had to catch up fast. Conveying message to potential attendees, how to register, how to attend, how to participate, was a big part of keeping virtual events viable. Most important was making sure that everyone in the community still felt connected at a virtual event. When so many nonprofits put so much time and so much effort into making each event better than last year, they really had to step up for the annual event that was completely out of the norm. For as many problems as the tech seemed to create, it actually answered even more. Personalized digital invitations with instructions and guided experiences gave members more confidence to join a virtual event. And a lead capture tool could be the answer to help you build better connections while online. It can allow you to connect like-minded attendees in virtual rooms for better online networking. And there's tons of different things that we saw just over the course of the past 18 months. Now, finding the right technology and systems to connect your virtual event seamlessly, revenue streams, and your CRM is critical to the continued sustainability of many nonprofits. And while many probably think that, well, we can't afford that, I'm here to tell you that there are affordable and effective solutions. And things like Mission Suite, for example, are affordable, and they're built to be affordable for nonprofits to serve those nonprofits' needs, right? So find something that's going to work for you. Find something that is going to be priced for you. Find something that fits, because they're out there. I can promise you that. One last challenge that I do want to touch on while we're talking here about nonprofit challenges is volunteering. Now, as a nonprofit leader, I'm sure that you know that you have another very interesting and unique challenge to face. It's that volunteer workforce of yours. Think about it. What other organization has such a massive unpaid workforce that they need to keep interested and engaged? In addition to maintaining donor engagement, both online and in person, nonprofits have to do a lot of the same work to keep that volunteer workforce connected and engaged as well. Turning your volunteers into kind of super partners with the same tender loving care that you used for your donors leads to more connected, more committed, and more content volunteers. And it's worth your time to do some volunteer homework and create a journey and, kind of keep in touch with them as well. Think about what they need from you, what they're looking for from you, what they're looking for from their experience with you. Training, direction, recognition, and all those things, and make sure that you're hitting on those marks, right? Or just maybe self-satisfaction. Right? Touch on that as well. Imagine if you had some of the absolute best volunteers, how would you hold on to them? How would you make sure that they're not just a champion for your cause, but they're going to actually do a lot of work for your organization as well for free? Well, just like your donors, your volunteers are looking for a partnership. They want to feel connected to your cause. They want to feel connected to your team and to the job that they're doing. So developing some sort of a recognition plan is a great way to do that. A volunteer is far more likely to stay connected to a cause when the team feels appreciated and they feel cared for. And last, but certainly not least, nonprofits, and really any organization, need to be able to and open to testing any and all of these things and make changes where they need to, right? What worked great last year is probably not going to work as well this year. Or maybe it will, right? You don't know that unless you test it. That doesn't mean that your planning and strategies are bad, but maybe they just need a little updating. Maybe they need a little bit more reinvigoration to get the same enthusiasm. Your messages are going to change, and you have to be open to that. Honestly, if your needs and messages aren't changing, then you're quite possibly just not paying attention. Many organizations, both for-profit and non-for-profit, they're regularly surveying teams and their clients and their donors, right? And they're using that information to test new methods and new ways to connect. A survey can deliver valuable information to you and to your leadership, and it can make your donors and volunteers feel like their opinion actually matters to you. Bottom line is this: nonprofits are facing a lot of challenges. We all are, of course, but it's how we adapt and use the tools that are available to us that are going to make us successful. Now, we can all take a lesson from the perseverance and the adaptability that most nonprofits show. And because they have to remain agile even when it seems impossible. And if you can arm that nonprofit team that you have with the right tools, you're going to be that much further ahead. Hey, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, do me a favor, hit the like button and maybe share it, maybe give it a comment so that other people can see it too. That always helps us with this YouTube algorithm that we're working on here. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And while you're here, take a look at some of the videos that are on the screen. Who knows, they might be valuable to you. And we'll see you next time around. Cheers.